Hello, my name is Natilcinia, and welcome back to my channel. Today is a bit of an impulsive recording. I've been having this itch all day to record this particular video. Now I'm finally getting able to do it. There's no script or anything. It's all very much as usual in one go. But let's just go for it. So for a few months now, I've been working on my project archive. It's a Google Drive that's public access. I will be including a link to it in the description below. Oopsies, sorry, my notifications. But yeah, past few months I've made this Google Drive. It's public access, and this is where I'll be sharing and hosting and storing all of my personal project work. This includes all my stories, animatics, books, animations. It serves first and foremost as an archive, as a place where like everything of mine is here. In the case anything happens, either to me or my work. I hope to be here as long as possible to continue my work as much as possible. So that's really the main reason why I have this archive up, being like, oh, I'm here, this is what I do, or I was here and this is what I did. But anyway, secondly, it's a place where I can share my work with people with like you. So if you're watching this, thank you so much. I'm just going to be going through all of these folders and just giving them my thoughts while giving you a chance to see them. Of course, it's always going to be up. I have backups and whatnot. So like even if this goes down, I'll have backup. I already have backup saves and whatnot. So we're all good. This is everything, of course, with it being public, everything I am comfortable with the public seeing. There's like no spoilers to my work or anything. All that is written down and backed up on something separate. But still, so yeah, my archives. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and skip over the first folder because that's where the meat of everything is. This is my collection of resources. Credit and copyright notice. I'm really big on giving credit where credit is due. So like, I have like fan art and fan writing written by other people, which I am like so unbelievably like astounded and grateful for. Like, whoa. But yeah, it's, credit, I always will have some like their name credit in the actual document. If it's an image, it'll be like the file name, that sort of stuff. This here was an interview that I did over at Comic Art San Antonio last year. It's just me talking to like a lot of different comic artists and writers at the time, like that were present, writing down what they told me, and like here like everything I wrote from what they told me. I'm not gonna go through this one. It's a big read. Feel free to read it. It's stuff, advice that they give for like, hi, I'm an aspiring comic artist. What would you like to tell me that would be useful? That sort of stuff. Yeah. This is just a PDF view of it. Let's see. Project interviews. I'm also not going to be going through these. I'm not going to be going through like the big documents. So I'm mostly going to be going through like art and whatnot. I actually don't know how long I'll be talking in this video. I'm not sure if there's going to be multiple parts. If I get to like the 30-minute threshold, I'll be like, all right, catch you in part 2 or whatever. Yeah. I was interviewed by a user known as Wisp on Discord. They interviewed me about Anvirian lore and world building, as you can read here. Do you read through this stuff about my realm of Anvir that I use for my stories and whatnot? If you don't know, 95% of my stories take place on the same world, same realm. It's known as Anvir. I have multiple stories. They all kind of take place at different times, different points with different characters, different casts, and all that sort of stuff. Some stories do overlap. with like characters and whatnot, roughly timeline, but they're all standalone stories that you can read at your own pace in your own order. But they are all interconnected. So the more of my work you read, the more like you'll know about Anvir and like something more. Yeah. So yeah, there's 2 interviews that Wisp did with me. Stuff like parts of the realm, the Fey folk characters. Yeah. Let's see. Work by fans. This is where I hope I'm gonna be moving. I'm not sure. I might get rid of this folder. Depends, and have like just individual folders within the folders of my project that have fan work. Or I just might put all the fan work all in one place. We'll see. Copyright notice. Yep. All contents found within these files, unless otherwise stated. I do need to, unless otherwise stated, all contents found within these files are under full copyright of Natil Cinia. That would be me. No part of these contents may be used or reproduced in any form without permission from the creator, me, as permitted by U.S. copyright law. To request permission, you can email me here. By viewing this content found within these files, you can acknowledge this notice. 2025, that's when it was made. So, technically, if you continue on with this video, you are acknowledging this copyright notice. It's just a protection for me and my work. So, if you don't agree with this copyright notice, go away. Don't watch this video. Goodbye. Like, seriously. A letter from Natil. That's just me talking about, life and whatnot. Sorry, scary noise outside. Yeah, just, me like, oh yeah, this is what I do. It's great joy. Hi, I live. I struggle. If you want to help me here. Guys, it is my biggest dream to just work on this stuff every day of my life. And I know I'm not interested in getting rich or anything. Like, that's not the point. The point is me just pursuing this passion. Sorry, scary noises outside again. Pursuing this passion because it's really all I really care about. It's the one thing that makes me happy, and I just want to share it with people. Be like, hey, this is what I made. If you like it, that's great. Let me show you more. If not, that's okay. I hope you have a wonderful day. But it's, if you want to support me and help me continue my work, there's links to that too on the archives. Thank you so much. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to the real meat of everything here. These are my projects. They're my own. Each project has its own little folder. Of course, like when you see like Project FD or H, anything that has a letter, that's just a placeholder name for the true title of the work. Likewise, like with Solar Struck and Undiscovery, that's the name of the work. Let's see, got fan rating at the very end, but we're just gonna go ahead and start from the very top and work to our way bottom alphabetically. I don't want to I don't want to speed through anything. I'm just gonna do this like all organically. So here we go. Natil Rambling Hours. So this first folder is gonna be my Anvir lore and world building. It's all in alphabetical. It's all in alphabetical order. Not really indicative of the order of how things were created. But I'll try to be like, oh yeah, I made this in this year, I made that in this year. Alkandra, the sister realm. It's a sister realm to Anvir. It's the home of the Alkandrians. Let's see. The Alkandrians, this was, taking the ramble I had on Blue Sky. Hailing from Anvir's sister realm, Alkandra, these hominids are highly regarded for their incredible skill with magic. They're also known as Cosmomancers for their use of gemstones to channel said magical abilities. Oftentimes, the first/base gemstone determines what type of spell and abilities the Alkandrians may practice, though this can be quickly expanded upon by obtaining more gems. The Society of Alcandra is often mistaken for a monarchy. They have a person known as the Guardian, whose role is to simply protect the Star Jewel, the very heart of the realm. The Guardian is very much treated like a queen by the rest of the Alcandrans, well respected, revered, and often approached for advice. At the end of the day, though, it is she that serves the realm and its people. It is the role she was born into, with the Star Jewel being passed from mother to daughter. Such is the role of Winter Saphiri, the next guardian in line, who was forced to flee from Alcandra to Anvir, following the brutal murder of her mother by her jealous father, who hungers for the power that only the Star Jewel can grant. So yeah, brief little description of the Alcandrans. I will be, of course, as time goes on, I'll be adding more and more to these documents, these files, to these archives folders and whatnot. But I've been working on all of my stories since late 2009. I've been doing this for 16 years. I have been working on my stories, bouncing back and forth from all of them all at the same time. But Winter Saphiri, she does have her folder here. That would be Project W. Sorry to me jumping around. Goodness. Let's see, where are you? Yes, this would be where Winter Story would be featured, Project W. But we're not there yet. That's who will you be able to find her. So we're going back to Anvir / world building, and we're going to go over to the animals. We got the Anvirian Sheardal. Sheardal. Don't quite know. It is the Sheardal comes from the original name for griffins. So we have griffins in Anvir. They act like steeds. And on Anvir, they don't use horses or anything. They don't use real world animals from Earth as like steeds or anything like for labor. So instead, I'm taking and making my own fantasy creatures to serve as like steeds in their stead. So we have the Anvirian Sheardal. You can call them a griffin. They're called Sheardals in Anvir. Let's see. Face of a bird, body of a cat. I know with typical traditional griffins, there we go. I try to remember the word. I'm just like, it's not the Sphinx. Oh no. With traditional griffins, they're typically, eagle owl. Oh my gosh, eagle lion. On Anvir, they can be any feline and any avian. So we can have my favorite, the pigeon house cat, Sheardal. That's a very common pet on Anvir. Larger Sheardals act like horses. They are steeds. Hello, thank you. They are steeds, that sort of thing. Used for riding, labor, that sort of thing. Pulling wagons, flying, yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah. Love them. I gotta build more on them. I gotta add more animals. I know phoenixes are also a common pet / companion. I do want to make my own little guys. Eventually, I will. Okay. We're gonna get to the Anvir calendar in time. I'm not gonna go too much into that with this one. There's 13 months on Anvir. 7 days. 7 days a week, 4 weeks. So that's 28 days a month. All the moons, phases of the moon, lined up perfectly with each other. We got the turtle's moon, and then of course, I have it also lines up with Earth. So we have Turtle 1, which would be January 1st, Turtle 2, January 2nd, and so on and so forth. We're gonna jump ahead to Lion's moon. So like Lion 1 is January 29th. February 1st lines up with Lion 4, that sort of thing. And we also see the holidays marked on this calendar. So January 1st here, or Turtle 1, Soldi, which we have the name the names of the days. There we go on top. So we have Soldi, Firdi, Arkudi, Rakdi, Jishti, Steldi, and Lundi. Soldi would be Sunday. Lundi would be Monday. Wait. I'm wrong. Hold on. I'm wrong. Sorry. Soldi is the day of the sun. Lundi is the day of the moon. I got a little confused there. But it's essentially Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah. There we go. That's, that would be what lines up with us. So Soldi 1 is the new year. It's where the tide of festivities ends, and that is when the feast starts. For more information about the holidays, there is a document on here in the archives that I'll probably get to, but I do have a project in the works, Project G. I don't have to call it Project D anymore. Garden Grave is the story I'm working on, upcoming story. We get to, when I say we, I mean the viewer, but we get to see more closely in depth how Anverians would typically celebrate these holidays. So I'm just gonna list the name, and when I do get to the calendar, the document with the holidays, I'll do a brief little reading on that as well. So that's the first month is Turtle, second month is Lion, so the Lion's moon. From line 8 to 14th, we're going to see the Waking of Roses. This is a Fae holiday. But it's a week-long event. And then we're going to go to Shrew's Moon, which is the third month. Pretty standard month right here. Sheep's Moon, Sheep 7, April 1st is the spring equinox. We have the Jackal's Moon next, nothing of note really here. We have Dove's Moon here, that's next. And then we have the Deer's Moon. We're now in June / July. So Deer 14, July 1st is Midsummer. I will be changing the name of this, but it's essentially the summer solstice. Celebrated by all of Anverians, especially all of Fae. This is a very, very important day. It's also known as the Day of Light. It is the longest day of the year with also a full moon. So, the Day of Light, very exciting. So we go to Adder's Moon, Stoat's Moon, Bull's Moon, Bull 21, September 30th would be the Day of Remembrance, and this is where the tide of festivities begins. I also believe, it's not listed here, something on me, I forgot to check for that, double check on that. I believe this is also the fall equinox, yeah. This is the fall equinox. Next we have Sorval. We're into October now with the Slumber of Spirits, followed by Owl's Moon, where we are into November, and then finally the Dragon's Moon, which is the 13th month. Dragon 30th would be Yule Tide. I will also be changing the name of this holiday because I don't want any holidays that their names are from Earth. I do want to make that separation. So those are just little placeholder names for Midsummer and Yuletide. Not listed here is the Day of Darkness, which falls between Dragon 28th and Turtle 1, the first month. There's there's an extra day there. I say extra very loosely because if you do the math, 13 times 28 is only 364 days, I believe. So to make everything match up on Earth perfectly, I added the last day, 365 being the Day of Darkness. So that's how I lined everything up and whatnot. And then we're gonna go over here next to the Anvirian time periods. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Yes. Yep, this work in progress, as this is all from memory. I will need to consult my notes for further information and corrections. I will be needing to do that this year. I have so many notes I need to go through and make digital and share and whatnot. But the majority of my knowledge as of right now is from the top of my head without these notes as I'm talking and reading, going through all these archives. But again, with time, and there will be regular updates to the archives that will have all this information added. It's very exciting. And if you're here now as live in the present as this is all happening, you get to watch it, how things progress over time. And I think that's really nice, very magical in my opinion. So again, thank you so much for being here. So the Anvirian time periods. The Aimless Era, unknown duration. The era before written/recorded history. Due to this, much information about the era is merely speculated by keepers of times. The War of Ruin occurred during this period and ended with it when the beacon was completed. The duration of the war is argued amongst keepers of time, with some believing it to be 50 years, while others theorize it lasted over 500. Werewolves are murdered and believed to be completely killed off during this era. Project K takes place during the end of this time period. So, as the notes state, it's the Aimless era. Aimless era. No history. Hominids are definitely all around in Anvir. Sorry, I'm messing with my nose. But because nothing is written, there's no way to really keep track of things besides, of course, artifacts and speculation. But there is the War of Ruin. That's the major war that involved most, if not all, of Anvir. It's just, I believe, fighting between regions and whatnot over land, resources, that sort of thing. We're gonna go next into the Beacon era. This lasts between 4,000 and 4,000 to 5,000 years. The era following the completion of the Beacon and the end of the War of Ruin. The Librarian's Opal is established. History begins to be recorded by Keepers of Time. King Titania I reigns over the Fey realm from 1 Beacon era or BE to about 350s B. Yeah, bear with me, guys. I'm so sorry. And then afterwards, we get the second King Titania II reigning from 350 to 750 BE. King Titania III reigns from 750 to the 850s. King Titania IV reigns from the 850s to mid 1200s. Rosentide takes place early 1000s BE. King Titania V reigns from 1250 to the late 1860s. Alcandra and Anvir establish contact between one another in the 1300s. Gardengrave takes place during the 1670s. Project F takes place somewhere between the 1700s and late 1860s. Project E takes place early 1820s to mid 1860s. Project H takes place during the 1860s. Project W takes place mid to late 1860s. And then King Titania VI reigns from the late 1860s BE. All contact between Alcandra and Anvir is broken by early 1870s. Prom Night takes place in the early 1990s. Niyat Mara Enterprises is successfully established mid-1990s. Moondream takes place mid-1990s. Prime King takes place following the events of Fiona Coin, late 1990s. Alexei Adams goes missing in the early 2000s. Ocean Drive series and Pop Nightmare series take place during the early 2010s. The Keeper of Glass takes place early 2010s. Project FD and Project P take place somewhere between the 3000s and the 4000s. Some of this information, some of the projects, mostly, let's see, Moon Dream. The timeline for Moon Dream is wrong, I believe. So I think that's the only change I need to make. It's a little outdated, but I will make that change. Again, everything is all work in progress. Everything is always subject to change. But we can see here during the Beacon era that stories do overlap. And some, there are events that are happening. And then we go to the Constellation era. Unknown duration. Space travel is established. Walkway Blues takes place during $CE, and Hyperdrive takes place during $CE. Admittedly, I don't know when exactly, what year CE, Constellation era, they will take place, but they're there. I know that's where that's the time period that it roughly takes place. And as time goes on, I will figure out and set in stone all the finer details. So let's see. I believe that's everything. No, not yet. Not yet. Yep, this digital version of the calendar was made possible with the help of the Winter Aurora on Blue Sky. Thank you so much for your help, by the way. There's this digital version. I also have a printed out version just to help me with my stories. It's the same thing that we've already seen. Yep, nothing different. And now we're going to get into the Anvirian holidays. So, major Anvirian holidays. This is a list of holidays shared throughout the entirety of Anvir and their general practices. Do note that there are regional differences, but the base customs remain roughly the same. This does not include unique holidays celebrated by specific regions, as Natil, me, is still working on those via research of Earth cultures. Please note that religion does not exist on Anvir in the way that we understand it here on Earth, and that these holidays are a result of the War of Ruin and our relations with the Fae. So, the holidays that we saw on the Anvirian calendar, this is where we can read a bit of a brief description with them. So, the feast, Turtle 1, January 1st. A celebration of the New Year and the end of the tide of festivities. All preparations from the tide of festivities lead to this. It is symbolic of hope and survival, even through the darkest hours. It also marks the day that the War of Ruin ended and the beacon was completed, thus ushering the beacon era. Everyone is encouraged to eat well, be joyous, and look forward to a good year. All Yule logs are to be fully burnt and their ashes returned to the spot where the parent tree was cut down so that a new one may grow for the year. So again, with me changing Yuletide, the name of the Yule logs will be changed as well. That is something that I do need to figure out. Common practices include wearing new clothes that are often red or gold, giving gifts, singing, and dancing. All cleaning should be avoided until the following day. So, I've actually borrowed those customs looking at real world customs of how people celebrate the new year, such as like giving gifts, wearing specific colors and whatnot. I try to, look at how, people all throughout the world do things and, try to, borrow from them to give it more of like a genuine sense, like more, make it feel more genuine, and like to give like a respectful nod to all the cultures here on Earth. Yeah. So after the feast, we have the Waking of Roses from Lion 8 to the 14th. Also lines up with February 5th to the 11th. Also known as Rosentide or Rosenwake, depending on region, this is a period in which non-winter Fae return to Anvir from the Fae realm. hominids are often approached by disguised fae who ask for favors/knowledge, often pertaining to the topic of love. I'm going to take a quick drink of water right here. Okay, so about the fae. Anvirian fae do not recognize or register emotions like hominids do. Fae typically don't understand love or its concept. Neither do they really like understand anger or sadness or hope like hominids do. So going back to the next bullet point, the most common practice is giving fae gifts of flowers or sweets that have been prepared days beforehand, though the majority of hominids do not do this as they opt out to try to avoid the fae altogether. This is because the fae on Anvir are natural predators to hominids. When I say hominids, I do mean like humans, the werefolk, fosfolk, ingel, Alcandrins, that sort of thing. So they are the natural predators to hominids. So that's why hominids tend to be like, ooh, don't mess with the fae, they will get you. So let's see. Due to this avoidance, this has caused the Waking of Roses to be considered more of a fae holiday that witches mostly practice, though the holiday is still recognized by all of Anvir. Due to the very nature of fae, those that participate in giving the gifts to fae can always expect to be giving gifts in return, often flowers or mostly harmless sweets. It is considered extremely rude to re-gift these items to another fae, and such actions have dire consequences. Anvirian fae, they are very much carry on the belief of fairness in transactional actions. So it's like, hey, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. So if you give a fae flowers or sweets or gifts on the Waking of Roses, that fae will give you something in return. Most likely flowers and sweets, all the same. Final note or final bullet point of this holiday. Absolutely no marriages are to occur during this period, regardless of practice for the holiday or not. And we have a club and a diamond at the very end of this bullet point. That is a nod to one of my stories. We get to see what happens when people do get married on this holiday. I won't say too much about that. So we're moving on to the spring equinox, Sheep 7, also known as April 1st, here on Earth. Nature is in full bloom, and as such, all crops are expected to be planted for autumn harvest. Businesses finalize plans and trade deals for the year. Negotiations between regions and territories are often set in stone around this time. Households undergo major cleanings and renovations. The number of marriages peak at this time of year. It is recommended to wear green on this day. It is also the best day for a haircut. Children play pranks on each other and test each other's wits as a practice in the event may they ever encounter a fae and need to outsmart them. As a result, this day is also known as Justintide or Justin-Wake, depending on the region. That last bullet point is kind of like a little nod to April Fool's Day here on Earth. And then we move on to Midsummer, also known as the Day of Light. I will be changing that to the Day of Light. That's what hominids call it. And the Fae, I believe, call it Midsummer. So yes, also known as the Summer Solstice or the Day of Light, the longest day of sunlight accompanied by a full moon with a spectacular lunar eclipse. While highly celebrated by hominids, the holiday is recognized by its Fae name, as is the birthday of all King Titanias, regardless of if the current king was born on a different date. I do want to add that King Titania is just a title for that Fae. The Titania, whoever it may be at the time, is considered the strongest Fae. Again, at that time. But regardless of their name prior to becoming king, they will always all be known as King Titania. Do you know that all of my fae, don't necessarily have gender or sex or anything like that. They don't reproduce. They are the result of high concentrations of nature. So like for example, if there's a really strong windstorm, wind fae will be produced from that windstorm or tornado. If there's a flood, water fae will be produced from that flood, that sort of thing. So by nature of the fae, they don't really have pronouns. They don't use she or he. At least like in their language. There is a fae language that I am working on. So for hominids, and typically with fae, when they speak Parlian, Parlian being the common language for Anvir, it is not English. I want to say it's not English. It is just a language developed for Anvirians to learn to be able to speak to each other regardless of region. So in Parlian, or Parl, fae go by they/it. Likewise in English, I always call my fae, use layer it for that. So with a King Titania, they/it. They it. So let's see. Midsummer is also the day in which the door to the Fae realm, I don't know why it says a Fae realm, but it should be the door to the Fae realm is open for hominids to venture into, should they find themselves unfortunate enough to come across it. All labor and work are discouraged on this day. As such, businesses are closed. It is recommended to wear bright colors. Magic users are strongest during this time. It is very common for plays, circuses, performances, and other forms of entertainment to take place on this day, as well as into the night. It is not recommended to sleep until the lunar eclipse is over. And now we move into the Day of Remembrance, Bull 21, also known as September 30th. Also known as the autumn equinox and the beginning of the tide of festivities. Despite being the beginning of the tide of festivities, this is a day of mourning. This day is dedicated to remembering the devastation brought by the War of Ruin, as well as honoring those that were lost during the war. While everyone is urged not to eat on this day, knights are almost required to participate in the fast. This serves to put into perspective the starvation many experienced during the war. Everyone is required to wear black on this day. The clothes must not be new. The clothes must not be new. The day following, Bull 22nd, October 1st, marks the beginning of the harvest season and preparations for winter, specifically the Day of Darkness and the feast. I'm going to go ahead and take another drink of water here. Whew. And then we're going to go ahead and move over to the Slumber Spirits, which is Serval 28 / November 4th. Non-winter fae return to the Fae realm as the days get shorter and colder. No offerings are to be made to the Fae. No words are to be spoken to them. Tangerines are to be left out by windows and doors for the Fae to take with them. Children are to be dressed up in costumes to prevent themselves from being snatched up by the Fae folk. Words of negativity should not be said on this day. Likewise, one should be careful with using statements such as "I wish." This is because, Fae listen so very closely to the hominids. And if you sometimes got to be careful for what you wish for. This is the period in which the Fae do slumber, so it's like their last chance to get any hominids before they're gone for the winter. Winter Fae may appear the following day, Owl 1, November 5th, and must be treated with extreme caution leading up to Yuletide. And then we go over to Yuletide. Dragon 28, December 30th. All harvests are to be completed by this day. Yule trees are cut down into logs for households to burn after dusk, once the sun has fully set. Families and friends prepare for the following day, the day of darkness, securing their homes and affirming their love for one another in the case they are lost before the next sunrise. Brown is worn on this day. And then finally, we get into the day of darkness, the winter solstice. A day-long solar eclipse followed by a new moon. It is the coldest day of the year. All Envirians stay indoors and near the burning Yule log for light and warmth. Porridge is eaten for breakfast and is the only meal. Stories are told from generation to generation, are recited over the fire while everyone awaits the next day, the feast, where the sun will rise again and bring forth a new year. White is worn on this day. So for the day of darkness, again, it is a day-long solar eclipse with a new moon. There is no light outside, absolutely none. It is dark, it is quiet, deathly still. You're not supposed to go outside during the night. The cold is so extreme, it will get you. That's why everything, plants, animals, they all seek shelter. And it's quite common so that the cold may get so extreme that those that are susceptible to extreme temperatures may pass, even if they are by the Yule log. I will be changing the name of that by the burning log and whatnot. But yeah, it's a very solemn day. Everyone gathers together, and loved ones and whatnot. Spend some time, tell stories, legends, fables, mythologies over the fire, and they're just there for one another until the next day, which we go back to the feast, the celebration, and the year starts all over again. I wasn't expecting to already hit almost 45 minutes here, and we've barely scratched into these archives, these folders, but it makes me happy. I love talking about my work, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and be splitting these into parts, into different recordings whenever I have the time to sit down and talk, and we'll be going through the this whole series of folders. Of course, you are more welcome to look ahead. Please do venture into these archives. I know all I've really talked about is just like lore notes, but there's so much art of mine that I've made from 2009 up until now, and will continue to make and put up here in these archives. Anything that's in the gallery is all art, all drawings that I've made. Here are some fae right here. Of course, it's all found. So this will be the end of this first video. I'll make a mental note that we left off on the calendar and timeline. Yep. And we will continue whenever I have the next chance. The next chance I get to record and talk. But yeah, this is very exciting. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you again. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I'll see you next time.